Wasn't much of urge.
Hey, my clocks are dinging here, and so that means it's 10 o'clock.
Sometimes you say
Begin the meeting. This meeting will be in person via WebEx conference and streamed on the internet. The public may join the meeting via WebEx in person at the meeting room or watch on live stream. If joining the meeting in person, the total number of persons, including commissioners, cannot exceed 10, and social distancing of at least 6 feet will be in effect. The governor of the state of Minnesota has issued Executive Order 20-01 declaring a peacetime emergency and coordinating Minnesota's strategy to promote or protect Minnesotans from COVID-19. On March 24th, 2020, the Pine County Board of Commissioners declared a local emergency for Pine County. Based on these conditions, the chair of the Pine County Board has determined that the requirements of statute 13D-021 subdivision 1 have been met, and it is not practical or prudent for all members of the county board to meet in person. So with that, we will call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
no public in the room here.
Say that again.
No public in the room here.
Okay, thank you. So public forum, is anybody on the call in wish to speak? You see anybody raising their hand, Ryan?
I do not, and there is nothing in the chat.
Okay. We'll move on to the agenda. I know there are some additions or corrections.
Mr. Chair, if we could
Yes, I'm
add,
not hearing you guys in Sandstone very well. Go ahead, David.
all right, is that any better? I'll try to
Yeah,
move as close as I can to the mic. If we could add consent agenda item number 8, new hire, to consider approval of hiring of Leslie Sauter as the Economic Development Coordinator effective May 17th. And then a revision to the agenda to item number F to correct the acronym for CHIP, CHIP, should be Community Health Improvement Plan. And then to note the cancellation in 11E of the Snake River Watershed Management Board meeting for April 26th.
that's it.
Yes.
Are there any other additions or corrections? If not, we'll stand for a motion.
I will move as amended. Ludwig.
Upgren was second.
Got a motion by Ludwig, second by Lovegren to approve the agenda as amended. Any more discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll. And I want to say one thing. Josh Moore is not able to call in today. And Reese has another meeting. If he gets a chance, he will dial in when he's done. Go ahead, Debbie.
Okay, thank you. District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes of April 6, 21 County Board meeting and summary for publication.
This is Lovegren. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Thank you.
I can second.
Go ahead.
Is that
JJ, second.
JJ? Okay, we got a motion by Lover and second by JJ to approve the minutes. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
Thank you.
Then we'll move on to the minutes of the board's report and correspondence, the Pine County Zoning Board from February 25th and the Pine County Chemical Health Coalition from April 12th.
So moved, Ludwig.
Second, Lovegren.
Motion by Ludwig, second by Lovegren to approve the boards and reports or reports from the boards as printed. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
Thank you.
That will move us to the consent agenda with the addition of the hire of Leslie Sauter. Is there any, I need a motion for that?
This is Terry. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Terry.
Ludwig will support.
Thank you, Matt. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Every month or every time we have a meeting, I see those reports for the septic systems, and I think that is an awesome thing. And maybe Caleb could give us a report of how many of those, I haven't been keeping track, but how many of those we've doled out since we started that program. Thank you. Anyway, we'll move on to regular agenda, the facilities committee report. We do have the minutes, but one of you guys from facilities want to tackle that?
Yeah, I can take that. The meeting was the 7th. We talked a little bit about the projects, the carpet that was picked out at the one project. David said it's great. The budgeted dollars are at the amount planned. There was some movement of the screen placement from what I gathered in discussion, putting a better place with the new projector. More of the budget dollars were discussed. Also, there was no grant update on the solid waste. We're planning May 6th to meet up at the Pine City shop to check out the facilities in person. We discussed earlier that it would be better to hit the ground there and actually walk around, and as we discuss the things, look at the actual facility to get my mind at least wrapped around a little better. Discuss some solar. Not much interest there yet. Courtroom was briefly discussed. Storage in the North Pine Government Center basement was discussed. More discussion on the boiler maintenance, that it's still performed by a Pine County employee for the city of Pine City. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't believe there's any action that needs to take place there. I appreciate the work you guys do on that. It's really helpful to the rest of the board to come back with a nice printed copy and then an explanation. So thank you. Personnel committee.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ludwig, I'll take that.
Yep.
We met on April 12th, and I'll start off with like we always do by the department, the sheriff's office and court security. We ratified the termination of part-time court security officer Rodney Zacharias effective April 1st, 2021, and we request to backfill the position and any subsequent vacancies that are made or occur to the internal promotion or lateral transfer. Based on reduced court activity, the position will not be recruited until it's necessary. Health and Human Services authorize the recruitment of full-time case aide. Like, there's a current case aide that's going to be retiring in October of 2021 and request a backfill of any subsequent vacancies that occur to internal promotion or lateral transfer. This request is to allow job shadowing for a period of 3 to 4 months. It's just a big program, so it's good to have job shadowing, so it's a nice smooth transition. In highway, we acknowledge the retirement of Engineering Technician 3, Anthony Anderson, effective May 7th, 2021, and that position will not be filled at this time. In administration, we approve the following updates of personnel policies and procedures. Section 3.9 Veterans Preferences. Standard vets will move from 5 points to 10 points, and this is upgrade with statutes. Section 3.19 on personnel board of appeals, it was just a correction of the right statute number. And section 13.5 sub 1, the removal of an honorable discharged veteran. The formal hearing request will 60 days down to 30 days. And that's also an update with statute. And Mr. Chair, I will make a recommendation.
Matt, I lost your audio.
I will move those recommendations, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I can second.
We have a second.
Well done, second.
Thanks, JJ. Is there any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
You said yes.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you have some more you're going to continue with there, Matt? Is that it?
What was that, Mr. Chair?
Well, I was wondering if you were done with the whole report.
I think I was.
Yeah,
Did I miss
the
something?
rest is just, I see. Yep. Okay. I got too many pages. We'll move on to National Correction Officer Week. We have somebody that's going to present anything?
Looks like Sheriff Nelson is on the call.
All right.
Can you hear me this time?
Yep, got you.
Unfortunately, when I really don't have anything to say, then my audio works. I was not aware that Rodney was not going to be on here, so.
Well, I think we can all figure out that it's a recognition of the correctional officers, and I think we would be well served to make a resolution that acknowledge them and the work that they do. They're kind of those people that go to work and work all day and all night and all weekend, and when everything goes well, we don't hear about them, and things go well 99.9% of the time in our county correctional system. So hats off to those people.
Yeah, I would
Mr.
definitely
Chair?
echo that.
If I could just put in a plug as well, we know that Rod Williamson, who's the jail administrator, has really helped, I think, all of us understand the typical short duration of incarceration, which is an average of 13 days, and the importance of the programming that the jail does to help with whether it's addiction or education or housing upon reentry, that all of those facets are important elements to reducing recidivism. And so just, good job by all those staff in the jail.
Thank you. Somebody want to make a motion for the resolution?
Ludwig will move resolution 2021-24.
Thank you.
Lovegren will second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldam.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll move on to tax forfeited or tax forfeit contract reinstatement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Kelly Schroeder, County Auditor Treasurer. So before you today, the County Auditor Treasurer's Office received an application to reinstate a contract for purchase or repurchase from a gentleman named Dan Johnson. So Mr. Johnson has had a very poor payment history. In my board request, I outlined it. I think if you said someone has had 3 strikes and they're out, that would define Mr. Johnson. But with his request, I am hoping that there's more that we can consider. So Mr. Johnson has he's had a very poor payment history since 2004. He owned the property for almost 20 years prior to that. And in 2004, Mr. Johnson became unable to work due to health problems. And as you can see with his payment history, I mean, he has had a struggle for that many years. Now in November of this year, he actually finally got on Social Security. So he finally has his first stable income since 2004. And it sounds like that's about $1,000 a month. And so his repurchase payment is an annual payment, and with interest ends up to be about $1,300. So with those 2 things in mind, and the fact this is his homestead, if we deny this request, he literally becomes homeless. I am suggesting that we should actually consider approving this reinstatement. Questions? I guess the other thing that I wanted to mention is, at this point, this is a completely the county board's decision, whether you want to allow him to reinstate his contract, whether you want him to have to just pay the contract off in full, or if, as we've done in the past, some folks, we just tell them they're out and, they need to move on. But again, with him, I am suggesting that we do give him one more last chance. Okay, questions now.
So Kelly, I have a question.
Yes.
So reinstating this, how close is he to his 50%?
Once this is reinstatement stated, he's got 4 payments left. So he will be over the 50% after this reinstatement.
Kelly,
Yes.
there's a statutory requirement for a finding by the county board to do the reinstatement. Is that correct?
Correct. Well, it's through the resolution.
Okay.
And so the county board is supposed to take into consideration undue hardship in that if has the forfeiture, was it due to undue hardship? Is there some sort of remedy that we can provide in this case?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a question. Is this his first time? We're not doing that game playing thing, are we?
No, if you looked at the board request, I guess if I counted them, I would say this is probably his fourth time. And so again, on this one, normally I would be coming to you asking you just to make him pay it off in full or just not let him repurchase. But with his situation, he finally has that stable income source after 15 years. He has no mortgage on the property. So this would be his only housing payment that he needs to worry about. And it's an annual payment, which is almost equal to only 1 month of his current income.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yep.
Say, how big is this parcel of property? And then what does he pay yearly?
So it is a lot on the Lower Snake River. It's 2.11 acres. And his annual taxes are approximately $550. And so if you were to reinstate it today, he'd have his annual payment he needs to make on the back taxes, which with interest ends up to be about $1,200, and then he'd have to keep the taxes current. So you do have before you a resolution authorizing the reinstatement. Otherwise, I can do a reinstatement on the contract. Otherwise, I mean, again, you could reinstate, just require him to pay in full, or you could choose not to reinstate it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
What would his payment in full be, Kelly?
It would be 11,500, where the reinstatement on the contract, he already had to come up with 6,400 to just reinstate the contract.
Yeah.
Could we stipulate this as the last? I go back to when you explained something to us at the board.
Yeah, I don't know if we can stipulate that it's the last, because once he's over 50%, then we don't have a say.
Okay,
So yeah, that's why I asked where he was at with his 50%.
always over 50.
With this payment, he will be over, I'm looking at you, Kelly, I don't know if you can see it. He will be over his 50% with this payment.
So we should let him try, I think.
Yeah,
I definitely,
I will
make a motion to,
Yeah.
I guess, let
I'll
go.
second that.
yeah. I think you have put in so much time determining whether or not he's going to be good to this. Yeah, I agree. So I'll make a motion that we approve this resolution.
That already
I
happened.
think,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think
Yeah.
JJ already did. Didn't you,
Yeah.
JJ?
Did you second it? Okay, Matt seconded. Okay. Thank you for your
We're
work.
gonna- We got a motion by JJ, seconded by Matt. Any more discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
One watershed, one plan, Kettle River, Upper St. Croix.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I've put together this request. The county and SWCD staff from Carleton and Pine counties, we've been discussing whether now is a good time to put in an application for a planning grant for this, the Kettle River watershed in the Upper St. Croix. They're kind of lumped together just due to similar nature in the watersheds by the state program. But it's something there. The planning grants come out, the RFP each year, and we kind of have to weigh when is a good time to do it. One of the things we've looked at is our county water plan was resolved to expire in the end of 2025. Carleton is in a similar situation. Theirs expires 2023. And our two counties make up the vast majority of the watershed. There's a small portion in Kanabec County as well in Aitkin, such that Aitkin and Kanabec are not mandatory partners under the program. They'd be optional. So we've been working through it and kind of trying to figure out if we proceed, who would do what. And our office would like to step up a little bit more than we have in the past. In the past, it's been something where, we assign a policy committee member, myself and Jeremy Williamson kind of serve on the advisory and steering committees, but we do all our staff time as match for the grant on the previous ones we've participated in. In this one, we're actually proposing, we're interested in being the applicant, the fiscal agent for the project. And then Pine SWCD, Paul Swanson, would be more of the day-to-day project coordinator. So we would be under contract with Bowser and then contract with the consultant who was facilitating all the meetings, and then with Paul, anybody else who did other work. And we're also interested in assisting in plan writing. So I'm kind of excited. We put so much time into all of these grants to finally bring some dollars home for our time. We're well positioned to do that at this point. So I guess I'm looking for, and then another piece. So we've got the resolution, which is just basic county board support of the application. If that is something you guys are feeling good about and wish to pass, we would likely come back in May with a MOA. You score higher in the application process if you have an executed MOA. It just shows that much more project readiness, the staff's ability to coordinate and move things along. It just demonstrates a stronger proposal. So we'd be looking at that. And then the other thing I kind of would prime you on is, if funded, we'd like to kind of appoint a policy committee member and alternate, like we have with all the other watershed plans, and that would be contingent upon funding. And having those steps again makes us more competitive, because I'm told it's a fairly competitive. It's not as well funded this year as maybe in previous years, and then also there's a lot of interest. So that's what I know. Any questions for me?
If we have no questions for Caleb, I would entertain a motion for this resolution 21-29.
This is Terry, so moved.
Ludwig will second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Caleb is still there, I hope. So are you looking at, in the end, that this is such a huge chunk of the county that you want to take it in and manage it? Is that what you're saying? You're going to manage
So whoever manages the planning grant, and we would be kind of parsing out the duties. We would just be the fiscal agent, more or less. And then we would be subcontracting to Melanie Bomir at Carleton SWCD to lead plan writing, and Paul to lead kind of the coordination of all the committees. So all those agendas that get sent out, he would be doing more of that. Whereas we would kind of be managing the contract with Bowser and making sure that all of the planning processes were compliant with the contract and that everybody was getting paid timely and stuff like that. So, and then all of those rules and roles and duties can change upon plan adoption, because then you at the end of the planning process, you have that grant, you adopt a plan, and then that plan is good for 10 years and reviewed annually, can be updated, and it's more the implementation phase. And we can play musical chairs if we so choose, and different entities can manage that going forward into the future. So at this point, we're only discussing that 2 to 2.5 year planning grant.
which includes both Carleton SWCD when you say Melanie and Pine SWCD when you say Paul. So.
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
And
Thank you.
Through this planning process, then we've got Matt as our elected representative. Carleton County has a counterpart, I'm assuming. Is that how it's working?
Yeah,
They do now.
We would have
Okay.
to appoint a policy committee member from our organization. And that could be whoever wanted to do that.
What's different from what we're doing now? I mean, aren't we in the planning phase right now with that watershed? Or no, I'm off base.
That's the
There's
magic.
plans.
Yeah. I
So,
got you.
To answer your question,
So
both,
you're telling us now that Bowser's running out of money for these last watersheds that are coming online?
no,
what-
I wouldn't say that. I would say that I don't know how their budgets work, but I
Okay.
know that they don't have the same amount of dollars every time they open an RFP for one of these planning grants.
Okay.
So I guess all this being said, there's a chance we don't get funded is the only thing that I want you to be aware
But
of.
eventually, I mean, it's a big watershed, so if they don't have money this year, the money will probably be there next year or the year after, because it's not going to go away.
They're committed to see all these watershed plans roll out.
Right. So we got a motion by Lovgren, second by Ludwig for 2021-29 resolution. Any more discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Lovgren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to public health update. Sam, are you on?
Oh, there we go. Hello,
All right.
I'm here.
All right.
So public health. We are still living in the land of vaccines. That's not a land we're going to leave anytime soon. We've had the biggest one-day vaccine that we've gotten up, I think, was 600 or 700 vaccines in one day. So definitely ramping up the availability of vaccines in the community. We're not the only ones providing vaccines. Walmart, Thrifty, White, Wellia, Essentia, Gateway are all also providing vaccines. So if anybody's looking, they also have spots. We've very recently, and this is not just us, this is kind of across the board, reached the point where people who wanted it have been able to get in, the kind of gung-ho ones, and the people who are adamantly opposed are just going to hang out and do their thing. And now there's this kind of gray area of people who are like, well, maybe if I had some more education, I've got some questions, maybe. So that's kind of where we're going to start putting our focus, is doing more outreach and education, like very recent change of pivoting away from these very large clinics we've been doing into more targeted, smaller community outreach, working with community leaders. So if you have connections, feel free to, I might be tagging you and going, hey, do you have a connection in Willow River or wherever? So that's kind of where we're going with vaccines right now. Across the state in general, cases are going up, but it was really interesting because a couple of weeks ago, the curve was going up and all the epidemiologists in the state were going, this looks eerily similar to last fall. We don't like that because last fall, we all know what happened in November and December. It went like this, exponential growth. But it looks like it is like slowly creeping up, but we're not seeing that exponential growth. And we really think it's because we've gotten these vaccines out the door so quickly that more people are becoming protected and there's literally less bodies for COVID to infect. And that's really the whole point of herd immunity, is if we get up to 70%, there's so few bodies that it doesn't spread. So
Sam, how can you track what's the percentage of people in the county that have been vaccinated, and where do you think we are?
So the state actually tracks all that data, and then they basically look through. So any provider in the state is legally required to within 24 hours, upload information of who got vaccinated into a statewide system. And then that has your address, and then we can kind of from that filter out, okay, we know about this many people live in Pine County, so we're going to have a decently solid estimate of how many people in Pine County. Obviously not perfect, people move. But the last I looked, and it was from last week, so I can get more updated data, Pine County was 36% of over 16 have had at least one dose. That is not super great if you compare us to the rest of the state. We're actually, I think, 5th lowest county in the state in terms of vaccine. Cook County is weirdly good, like they're in the 70% already, but they have a big tribal presence and a very small population. But a lot of people are sitting in over 50%. A good chunk of the state's over 40%. So the fact that we're in the 30%, not great. So, I mean, we're working on it, but there's just a lot of vaccine hesitancy, particularly in the central region. So us, Kanabec, Isani, Sherburne, have all kind of been seeing these really low rates in comparison to the rest of the county or the state. So that's why we're going to pivot more towards education and working on vaccine hesitancy, because I'm not as worried about the percentage of people who are adamantly opposed. They're like, nope, you are never, no. Like that number generally hasn't changed from last November. Like that same, like 15% of people are just never going to get it. Cool. I'm not going to try and bark up that tree. But there's a lot of people who are just like, can I just get some more education? Can I ask you some questions? I just need to think about this. And that's kind of where we're like, okay, that's what I'm here for. I'm a resource for you to provide you factual, accurate information. So that's why we're kind of pivoting more towards education and outreach and getting in the community more. And it might be really, really tiny clinics where we set up shop and go, hey, if you want it, it's here. But otherwise, just ask me some questions and maybe you can walk away and a couple weeks from now, you feel more comfortable. Cool. We're not going to pressure you, but let me educate you. So yeah, that's where we're at as a county, is not as great as the rest of it.
I'm disappointed that we're only at 36%.
Yeah.
I thought we would be higher.
And that data from a couple days ago. So
I guess the people I hang around with are at about 100%. So I do have some younger family members that are waiting to get vaccinated, but
well,
they'll be in line soon. So I guess as a board, I mean, I really think the education point and how we move that needle upwards is to our advantage, given where we are located in the state, and every buddy that's traveling to Northeast Minnesota to go to Cook County, where they're 70% vaccinated, goes through Pine County. So I think we need to up our game. You guys have been doing awesome. I think somewhere we've missed something. The other thing that's been on my mind, and I think of many board members, is at what point do we say now is the time we can start having in-person meetings? I will tomorrow or the next day be what would be considered fully vaccinated, where I've had my 2-week wait after my second shot. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. The only problem I have, I do not mind having meetings like this. I can see you really well. I can see Debbie Gray really well. I can see Jackie really well. Anybody that talks, that's sitting in front of their computer or their iPad, I can see really well. When we got 4 people sitting in the room in Sandstone, I told David yesterday, you kind of look like those little tiny salt shakers that you have at Thanksgiving that you can't quite tell what they are. But So I cannot see what they're saying. I cannot hear what they're saying. So, and the couple of times where we have come together and we sit spread apart with masks on, I would prefer everybody sit in front of a computer so I could see I didn't realize I was that much of a lip reader, I guess. But it is very, very difficult for me, and maybe it's just me, but I have a very difficult time hearing people in a bigger room with a mask on. And so I'm looking for feedback from the board, from you, from anybody that can enlighten me.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
go ahead, Sam.
I was just gonna chime in on the mask thing, because I know it's really, it can be challenging to be in a room where you're talking with masks, but that's kind of the big sticking point that public health has not really hedged its bets. Like, that masking works, but it only works if people are actually all following the rules. So if you did want to get together all in person, I would very, very strongly advocate for everybody to still wear masks, because they work. So that was my little, if you want to get in person, like, you know, at vaccine clinics, like, we're all in person, obviously, like, you can't do a vaccine clinic virtually, that doesn't work. But all of my staff are required to wear surgical masks. It is not a surgical mask or above. So a couple people wear N95s, but there is no wiggle room there for me. You don't get a choice. You're going to be at a vaccine clinic, you're going to be in person around a whole bunch of people, you wear a mask. So that's kind of
As we all get vaccinated, Sam, is that change that scenario? If all 5 of us are vaccinated, and then it's like, we could sit around the table and have a meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, if you had other people in the room that weren't vaccinated, then you would still want to have a mask.
And we'd have to put a mask on.
Yep.
Because we can still spread it, even though we can't get it theoretically.
So there's actually some science coming out around that, and that was like a weird, I wish that the CDC was better about explaining things, because they're just not very good sometimes. We didn't know for sure, we didn't have the data to prove that if you were vaccinated, you didn't still catch it and be asymptomatic and spread it. Because that's just not how the study was designed when they were studying the vaccine. We now have some really good real world data saying that it actually does reduce transmission, which means that if you have the vaccine, you're not transmitting to other people, which is how most vaccines work. So it wasn't like a huge stretch to think that would happen for COVID too. So truly, it's only 90%. So there is that little statistic people can tweak through, and theoretically, a couple people will could potentially spread it, but it's a very small percentage. So generally, if you're vaccinated and everybody around you is vaccinated, fully vaccinated, which means 2 doses plus 2 weeks from Moderna and Pfizer, yeah, you don't have to wear a mask, and it's glorious. But everybody needs to be vaccinated to do that. Or wear masks.
What's the rest of the board think? Maybe I can try it again to, we could try it with a committee of the whole meeting and have our masks on, because I know everybody isn't fully vaccinated on the board. So we're going to have to wear masks if we're going to meet in person. If we're not going to meet in person, Ryan, can you help me out in this question? If we're going to continue to meet like this, is it possible that even though they'd still have to have a mask because they're there, but the people in Sandstone could connect with their computer so we could see them a little better? It helps with the hearing.
We can do that. Yep, Commissioner or Chair. We can do that. However, we can't use the audio for the microphones.
Right.
We'll have feedback. So you'll be able to see the face, but when they talk, it would go through the main camera still. A little bit defeating the purpose.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
Would that create a delay, Ryan?
You would just create a massive echo that would get out of control.
Okay.
So.
Mr. Chair, I have a question, and I think it's more for Jackie. I see her out there. Jackie, according to HIPAA, we really can't ask people who have been vaccinated and who have not been vaccinated, correct?
That is my understanding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, you know,
So we-
I've been upfront, I am not vaccinated and it's not on my goals right now. So, you know, if you feel more comfortable, I can be in a different room. I'd be fine with that. But I think that with that law out there with HIPAA, I don't think that we have the right to ask people if they have been vaccinated. So I don't think you're ever really going to know who's fully vaccinated or not, Chair.
Well, that's why we're having this discussion, because
Yeah.
I'm at a loss of what we should do to make it
Right.
work for everybody. It works for me to be here, but I mean, it's not gonna go on forever. And I'm just looking for some feedback from the board of what way do you think we should proceed?
Well, I'm comfortable with meeting in person.
Me too.
I'm comfortable meeting in person.
I'm not uncomfortable. I'm just saying I can't hear. You know,
I understand that. And I think we all read lips, even when you hear well, it's still it's part of what humans do. So,
Yeah, you're, Mr. Chair, you were right when you said the lip reading thing. I had to think on that a second too. I do that more than I even realized.
Yeah.
Especially being around loud equipment my, entire life and career and,
Right.
and background noise or anything else. I've always just watched people's mouths instead of ask them to speak up or me get closer. But you're right the way you said it. I agree with that. I'm the same way. I didn't realize until this whole thing the last year how much you
Right.
that and eye contact. At least we still have that.
if I mean, right now I'm hearing through the microphone system, I'm hearing you guys really well. I can hear a helicopter right now really well too, but I'll let it pass. But when I get in that room, if memory serves me correct, I have a very difficult time hearing anyway from past experience. But we can certainly, I believe we'll probably have a committee of the whole meeting coming up and we can give it a shot and see what happens and go from there.
sounds good.
All right.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, may I speak up?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. This is Becky Foss, Director of Pine County Health and Human Services. As we move forward, I understand that this is a decision totally made by the county board. My request is just that some public health guidance be followed, just because you are the leaders of the community and people look for you and they look to your actions to understand and maybe know what's safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Becky, because that I believe is really the reason that we've continued to meet the way we have, because I believe wholeheartedly that we lead by example more than by what we say. And our example is, if you're going to be in person, you got to have a mask. Our example is, if you can get by without having a meeting in person, do it. And so I'm willing to try something, because I sense some frustration from some people, but I think we do have to keep that in mind, that we are who others look to say, well, look at them, they're meeting in person. that's why the legislators are really doing what they're doing, because their leadership believes that's the best example, the best thing they can do. If they really believe that wearing a mask and separated from each other is the way to go, you might as well practice what you preach. So anyway.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
you had suggested a committee of the whole format for an upcoming in-person meeting. And so I just want to maybe think that through, what that means in everybody's expectations for topics and then format. So I am aware that there is a desire to have a continuing conversation on the Second Amendment, and that would be a topic for a committee of the whole format. I know that we have had conversation previously on the sales tax and the necessity of the sales tax to maintain the local road program. And so typically we do a spring road tour, but given the pandemic, we don't want to put everyone in a vehicle and drive around the county. But we still need to have an update on roads and then a discussion of the sales tax. And so that might be another good topic for a committee of the whole meeting. And timing wise on that one, the transportation committee should meet first, and then that should go to the committee of the whole. So from a timing perspective, I'm thinking it would be a June committee of the whole with a May transportation committee meeting. Does that generally make sense?
yeah.
Are there other topics, or are those two topics on target? And are there other topics that people would want to be sure that we have?
I would also, if we can fit it all in, a couple of other things. I think a committee of the whole roundtable discussion on broadband would be one, just so everybody gets, I know we give these little updates during the meeting, but by June, we'll have a pretty good handle on what we might have to have some action. And then we meet in June, we'll have our economic development coordinator will actually have hit the ground running, and just a quick overview of so we can meet her in person and probably just so she can hear from us what our vision is.
Sounds good.
So for a format, I would contemplate we would do that here in Sandstone. We would set
Yes.
up a horseshoe shape at one end of the room facing the screen for the commissioners. And then the public would have space on the other half of the room. And then we would maintain a WebEx broadcast and a YouTube broadcast to allow public participation without physically having to be in the room.
Sounds good.
Yes.
And it would be a special meeting. The law allows any legal decision to be made at a special meeting as long as it's on the agenda. But it would seem to me that it would be good faith to use it as a committee of the whole for the purpose of discussion, not decision-making. And so that may help the public feel that they don't have to come to that meeting to ensure something happens or doesn't happen, but because we'll just say nothing's going to happen other than discussion. If that's the consensus that commission.
I think that's a clear expectation. We can tell the public that this is a time of discussion, and we're not gonna change things. If we have changes that come out, they will go back to the full board meeting.
Because I can imagine that there may be members of the public who would want to weigh in on any number of those, whether it's the sales tax, the Second Amendment, vision on economic development, et cetera. And so we would just, in a pandemic, we just have to be very thoughtful of structuring that public input so we capture it and people feel that they have the opportunity.
Right.
Exactly. Okay. You got enough to go on there, David, to start setting up a meeting?
I do. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yep. And now we'll have an update on the American Rescue Plan.
So there is really not much to update. There has been no guidance issued yet. The Economic Development Committee is planning to meet on May 3rd. And then that will allow for an update at the next county board meeting. And so hopefully we'll get some guidance by then from the federal government. But I certainly can stand for questions if people are hearing information from various associations or have questions that they want to be sure we're working on.
Everybody I've talked to, David, expects us to have some answers for them. So I think our small cities, you know, I'm talking the Willow Rivers and the Rock Creeks and those people who don't have full-time, or they don't have probably administrative staff there that can tackle the paperwork, that they're the ones that are probably more edgy about, you know, they know there's going to be some money available. They don't want to miss the golden opportunity. So we will make sure we alert them when the time is right.
Yes, and any jurisdiction, you know, city or township will receive the funding through the state of Minnesota. And so
Right.
if they have questions about that, we know that they will have to go through the state, and the state MMB office will develop those guidelines or for whatever procedure is to request those funds.
Thank you. We'll wait for updates. So they'll come sooner or later. First quarter budget report.
So this is typically the budget quarterly report of the year, because we're so new into the year that if it's looking bad at this point, we're really in trouble. So fortunately for us, it's not looking bad at this point. I did include some graphs that, in my mind, demonstrate that we really are about where we should be at this point of the year. When you look at it at the fund level, at the total county level, or the department level, things that, you know, maybe are cause for rejoicing. If you look at chart 2, the auditor looks like they've collected, you know, over 90% of their revenue. Well, that happens every year because it's inter-fund transfers and they do them in the first quarter. So even places that look out of sync are really not out of sync at this point. Are there any questions on the numbers represented in the graphs? So maybe the topic worth just highlighting is the sales tax. And this is the sales tax for transportation. The receipts must be spent on local roads that don't get state aid funding. Collections are ahead of the original projections. And so we are likely, and what I did is the text says using an average of the collection rate and projecting forward. All I did was take each monthly collection so far, find that average and extrapolate. And so it's a relatively conservative projection, but we should have finished the collections by early 2024 at the latest. And I would say barring a catastrophe like a pandemic, but that seems to not have hurt our collections. So the reason that this is important is Mark, the highway engineer, does 5+ year plans. And so if the county board wants to see projects in the out years, we're already getting to those out years. And so this committee of the whole that we're contemplating in June will be an important discussion time for commissioners to really think through the uses of the sales tax, the appetite for renewing or extending the sales tax, and then the uses of the sales tax. Some of our neighbors have been either through the existing legislation expanding the uses of the tax, or by seeking legislation, seeking to use it for non-road projects. And so I think commissioners can think that through. And historically, when it was enacted, Matt, you're looking at me really intently because I know this is important to you. The commissioners were very committed to it being only for road projects, not for anything else. And that has really worked out well for Pine County. So
Can I have a question?
yeah.
Go
If we
ahead,
just,
man.
if we just extend it, do we have to have our projects explained in the plan again and then set a new threshold and do a public hearing again and everything else again?
Yes. It would,
Okay.
in essence, it would be a new tax.
Yeah.
And so it would be all of the steps with the plan, the notice, the public hearing. And so it would be a process, which is why understanding the direction that the board wants to go is important so that we can lay out that roadmap.
Thank you.
And then JJ, do you have a question?
If I could, one question. What was the percentage again of that? I could just check at our store, I guess, but what was the percentage in? Was it 0.5%?
It's a 0.5%.
Okay, thank you.
And that's fixed in statute. Oh. Now I don't know. I don't see Mark on the call. I want to say yes, the 0.5% is fixed. It's the tab fee that the county board can make less.
So the half is always half. You can't go less than half. You can't go more than half.
I'm 90% sure.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I make one more comment?
Yes.
Just at our first one, and I just have to say this because we either met the threshold, we had a sunset. And I don't know how we look at that, but it was the language we put in that when we did the public hearing was we created, either we're gonna get to the point, get the dollars, it's over, or the
Right.
time is the sunset. So my question is only around if we were doing actions before that to really extending this one, I would just soon have a new one. But it's the same. But
That's,
so I don't want to, I just don't want us to look like we're being dishonest with what our initial plan.
no, our initial plan will run out, we're estimating in 2024, because we said we're going to collect, I think it was somewhere around $8 million for these projects or 10 years. Well, it's taken a lot less than 10 years to get to the $8 million. So when we look ahead and say, we have a 5-year road plan, we're already planning on money we don't have if it, for year 5 and soon be year 4, and then it'll be year 3. We can't, we either have to come up with a different way to fund our county road system, or we have to say, okay, we're gonna have this tax for another X amount of years or something. Because if we don't have the road tax, we still have roads that needs to be fixed. So if we're collecting $1 million a year roughly, and we let that go, we're gonna have to traditionally replace that with levy dollars. We would have to raise our levy 6% just to cover the loss in that revenue. So.
Yes, I understand that.
We'll have that discussion on our committee as a whole.
Okay.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay.
So the last part of the update is just to review the 2021 county board goals. And I'm not going to read over all of these, assuming that everyone can look at it. And if you have things you want to highlight or questions, certainly let me know. But my highlights would be The top two goals that the board, that the economic development and the broadband are goals that we have been going gangbusters on. And so, I think if you look at those, you should feel good that progress is made. The other ones, I think we've been making adequate progress, right? There's some of them are just timing issues that will come up during the course of the year or during the budget sessions. So as you look at this list, are there things that you want to be sure that we are maybe moving up in priority or putting some additional resources to things that, as you've thought about the goals for a few months now, that you want to clarify?
Well, we'll have the meeting with the sheriff's office in May, so that's safety side there.
And on the increased broadband, that second bullet with the application for federal funding, we did learn yesterday that that project has made the first cut, and Congressman Stauber's office has asked for a bunch of more information. What I don't know is if 10% of the projects made that first cut or if 99% of the projects made that first cut. But to get the request for more information is very positive. So that completes my quarterly update.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Is there any legislative updates from anybody?
There is, Mr. Chair, and we actually have Pat Meekum, Health and Human Services Supervisor, who wants to update on one particular legislative issue that is scheduled to be heard, I think, tomorrow in the Senate. So Pat will give the update, and I'm sure there'll be some discussions and questions.
Go ahead, Pat.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good morning. So I wanted to bring to your attention something that I know David and Becky and I have been looking after reviewing for the last week or so. I think it was brought to our attention last Wednesday, and that's Senate File 0383. That's the Omnibus Human Services Reform Budget Bill. As David said, last week it was passed out of the Reform Finance Policy Committee, and tomorrow it's scheduled to be heard at the Senate Finance Committee. Part of the 635-page bill pertains to the Medicaid waivers and specific services that are delivered through the waivers in my unit and obviously with counties throughout the state. And the piece, it's really one paragraph that out of the 635 pages that I want to make sure you're aware of. It amends some previous language to state that 90% of state funds and 10% of county funds for the costs of providing following newly authorized residential support services, which are foster care, assisted livings, et cetera, for individuals of the 18 years of age or older. So to break that down, what it's saying is currently the state or the state federal Medicaid funds pay for 100% of foster care and assisted living. And going forward, potentially starting on July 1st of this year, the state would require counties to have a 10% cost share of those services. Doing a little bit of the research on the impact, obviously first it states that it's July 1st, 2021 is concerning. But then looking into our caseloads and the individuals we work with, we have at least 15 individuals residing in qualifying settings, with 14 of them receiving the qualified waiver services. The annual rates for the services per individual, the low end, $47,000 a year, on the high end, over $1 million a year. Okay. So total cost for services anticipated to meet the statutory definition for Pine County equals about $3.4 million a year, which roughly could potentially have $340,000 a year becoming county cost share. I know probably Becky could talk about this. I mean, it is on par with some of those other out of home placement budgets that we have, adding a brand new one in the middle of the year. You guys know these numbers, the 340,000 would represent roughly, 1.75% levy increase on its own. It's nearly 58% of the levy increase that was passed in 21. So, obviously there's the monetary concerns that we have. And also, not to get on the soapbox too much, but, Becky and I have been talking about, it's continuing to be concerning that we have these quote unquote incentives coming from the state for us to provide person-centered services or the best services for the individuals we work with. And, that's why I'm so glad you've invited me, multiple times to come and talk about the good work we do, to have my case managers come in here and talk about the good work we do, because, it's kind of offensive to think that the state, who has never had to case manage or work with someone that has those higher needs or behaviors or has come out of St. Peter or AMRTC, to tell us that we need an incentive to do better work. So I'll stop there because, I could keep going on and on about how great my staff are and the work we do. So, and I apologize. I didn't get notes in or ahead of time, but obviously myself, David, Becky, we can get you kind of the cliff notes at a later date. And I'm sure any of us would be willing to answer some questions.
Mr. Chair, could I ask one question?
Yes, my phone is ringing. I can't shut it up. There.
So Pat, can you explain what the county is being incentivized to do that's not being done today?
Well, so great question, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I did reach out to a legislative assistant on the Finance Policy Committee, and his understanding was that there was some advocacy groups that were pushing this amendment. And I would think their thought process is that, if you recall from, I think it was about a year and a half ago, there was an article in the newspaper, in the Star Tribune, about too many people remaining in foster homes, trying to incentivize the count. It's really not incentivizing us, but to get individuals in their own apartments, to have the long-term care services out in the community and not to be in a foster home, which obviously, that's our goal. That's the goal of the services. That's the way the 19C Medicaid waivers are written by the federal government. We get approved to do at the county level. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pat or Becky, if you could, I got the Senate file number down. If you can give me the paragraph number or whatever. So when I call our senator and leave him a message or talk to him, he can quickly get to that page and
just email it out.
Yep, absolutely. Becky and I can work on that this afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if the board is agreeable, I think Becky would be in a position to actually send an email to Senator Rarick, especially because it's active in the Senate now, but to all of our legislators, and then we could give a copy of that to commissioners that would have all of the background rationale and statute sites, et cetera, if that's agreeable.
I think that would be awesome. I think it behooves all of us to follow up with a phone call or a text message or something to Senator Rarick and maybe our representatives to let them know. I mean, almost 2% of our levy would go to a program that would start in the middle of our fiscal year. We're just not prepared. We're just not prepared to cover those costs.
And I think the disappointing piece is that every session there are costs that the state tries to shift to counties without really clear policy changes that will result in a different outcome.
Yeah.
And that's where, I think we feel we're being let down by the state because they're state and federal mandated programs that we're running. And clearly there should be conversation about who funds what portion of it. But simply changing the funding mandate doesn't get to that point. And Becky, can you confirm, is that a communication you think you can have out today?
Yes, it is. And just to support what you're saying, not only, sometimes it feels like counties aren't consulted, it almost feels sneaky that some of this legislative stuff is being worked in at last minute. So that's something I want to draw attention to. And these types of narratives really started a couple years ago, from my experience with DHS and Anoka Metro Regional Treatment Center, when individuals no longer met the level of care being there, and trying to transfer them out into different places in the community. So I think at some point too, we have to have that conversation with our legislators about that narrative, because I don't see that narrative going away unless we tackle it and bring it to people's attention.
Do you want us to do a consensus as commissioners so she can use our names, or how do you want to do that? You can use my name and then I'll
You can
follow up.
use my name.
You can use my name. And I will follow up too. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Pat.
Yes, thanks.
And Becky, for, these are the kind of things I think we can help with, and so we don't have that staring contest at budget time. Where'd that number come from, you know? Well, we want to be able to engage our legislators so they understand what would happen in our counties.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Chair. Heads up. Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else under legislation?
Mr. Chair, I would just note House File 1104 eliminates qualified immunity for law enforcement officers. And you cannot live in the country or the state today and not recognize that there clearly is a focus on law enforcement actions and expectations. Maybe it's just worth clarifying what qualified immunity for law enforcement officers or for public officials generally does. And it's to protect from personal liability in civil lawsuits. And so we have used qualified immunity when we're sued because the lawsuit will name a particular employee or potentially a particular elected official. And as long as that person is operating within the scope of their duties and exercising good judgment, there's an immunity to them personally. It doesn't necessarily get the jurisdiction off the hook, right? But it keeps them from having to be personally liable. And so there is a rationale to it, in my mind, that people should at least be aware of, that the decisions that staff make every day involve judgment and discretion. And to be personally liable because there is no qualified immunity might have some unintended consequences. You know, and at the same time, we need to be very conscious that as public officials, we make decisions that impact people's lives, sometimes in very negative ways. Go back to the beginning of the meeting and we talked about that tax forfeiture and that situation, and the county commissioners exercise discretion, right? You know, to allow that person to remain, to have an opportunity to repurchase their property, which is their home. That is the kind of discretion that local government exercises and should, in my opinion, have some protection. So I just raise that because you probably see qualified immunity reported in the news, and maybe it's not well understood by folks.
Thanks, David. We'll go to commissioner updates. Soil and water, we got anything from there?
It's supposed to be in the consent staff.
Yeah, 7th of April, we had a soil and water meeting. Business as usual. The only thing I would like to add is that Jerry Weiss of the board of the soil and water had resigned. And during the public comment portion of the meeting, I just asked again if they had heard anything on the high water concerns of Sturgeon Lake, because a few people asking me again if there was going to be any follow-up. There was a news segment last year, year before, maybe now, that the news media actually came and spoke to some residents, and it sounded like the different groups of the government were trying to get together and figure out how to figure out what's going on up there with the high waters and the flooding and everything. And some people have just been asking if who's whose court the ball is in now, if it's DNR, if it's BWSR, if it's soil and water, if.
All of the above.
Yeah, if we've heard anything, if there's gonna be any action there.
Oh, I know we did at Island Lake.
Yeah, sturgeon still, there's still the high water. I mean, there's people's garages that were flooded, parts of their property they can't use. It's still a topic, but soil and water hadn't heard anything. I know I haven't, other than people asking me. I know nothing has come across this board. I was just gonna try to reach out to maybe our local representatives and see if they can. Maybe
So soil and water hasn't had any of
nobody's come in.
the shore erosion that Island Lake was having, where that's what spawned a lot. 'Cause
Yeah,
Island
yep.
was happening. We haven't had any feedback there.
Just this, what I'm talking about is the Sturgeon Lake, the water's come up and flooded portions behind the road on between like the resort of Rain Marges and the.
Okay.
So that was a public comment period there. And, like I said, everything else was business as usual at soil and water. That's all I have.
I got something that, so I had a guy call me and his neighbor put in a road across the field or something anyway. It's backing up water on this neighbor's land. So he called soil and water and they came down and said that road's got to have a culvert in or the road's got to be removed, and the guy won't do it. So what's the next move for the landowner who's getting his land flooded?
I wouldn't think you can flood somebody's.
No, you
property.
can't. And that's,
You can't.
and, but the guy, somebody's got to, I don't know who's got the legal authority to go in there and dig the dam. It's basically a dam.
Is it a road you said?
It's a farm field road or some such thing. I don't know, you know. But it's, I don't know who has, if soil and water says that has to be removed and the guy just refuses to do it. What's the guy that's getting flooded out? What's his recourse?
Yeah, there's not beaver or anything like that in there, is there?
No, it's a man-made structure.
That's a good question for Caleb.
I was hoping Caleb and Reese were on the call today, but anyway, I'll follow up with them. I don't know if soil and water has the authority to force some action. I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on. Pine County Law Library. Josh probably had that. Housing discussion with the new commissioners from the HRA board, Sloan and Bloom. I was part of that. That was a really good discussion. We've got those people. Matt, you were there, right?
Yes.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we also had a special meeting on the 16th of the HRA that I think Matt would want to update on too.
Okay, you want to do that, Matt? Right now?
I will. I'm gonna hand it off to David because there's a lot of interaction that I have part in my head and I don't want to mess it up.
Okay,
And I don't have my
go
notes,
ahead.
but
Thank you. So the two, well, for years, I think we have, as the county commissioners and the county have desired that the HRA be more active in housing, and now we have seen that. And so the two projects that they are working on, one is a housing choice voucher program expansion. And so HUD is taking applications to provide Section 8 vouchers. And so this would help low-income families pay for housing. And the other project that is in the works is looking at the North Court Apartments in Sandstone. And currently, that 8-unit apartment building is owned by a nonprofit called by the name of Accord out of Minneapolis.
for private.
I'm sorry?
A private nonprofit.
Yeah, so they are a nonprofit. They do some services in a way that are similar to Phase. I don't think they're an identical organization, but they do some disability type services. And they are desiring to move out of property ownership. And so the city of Sandstone actually negotiated a purchase agreement as part of the redevelopment of the Rock. And that appears not to be an option at this point because the developer, some issues with the developer, and then also with restriction on the property that requires it be owned by a nonprofit. And so the HRA has picked that up and is exploring possible ownership models. So both of those are just started, but very exciting.
Yes.
And the reason North Court Apartments is an important structure, maybe beyond the 8 units, is there are 8 site-based Section 8 vouchers that attach to the building. And so typically, if you have a Section 8 voucher, you can move to a different location in the state or the country, and that voucher moves with you. So it doesn't necessarily help Pine County once you move. If they're site-based like these are, then they are an asset to the community.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. The CBR Accelerate program, commonly referred to as the Blandon Project for broadband. Terry, you want to update everybody on that?
Sure. Right now we are in communication, and so we're trying to figure out how to get the word out. We have a survey that's online. You can go to the county's website and it's right on the main page. We need as many people as possible to fill out that survey. And then you can also do a speed test on your computers and do lots of them. Just do it periodically throughout the day, many different days, because it changes moment by moment. And so we need to have as many of those done that we can so that we can get our mapping done correctly so we can work with providers. So if you can spread the word to take the survey, we just need to get as many people everywhere to do that so that we can do what we need to do and see what we can get done.
And Mr. Chair, if I could continue.
Yeah.
Commissioners should have received, I'm holding up a little business card that probably looks like a grain of pepper next to the pepper shaker. These available for anyone, but if you can, if you want some or need more, these can be great conversation starters and handouts to people to give them the web address for the survey and the speed test, and also just the project page for people to stay updated.
Thank you. Do the survey. Have your friends and family do the survey. We need, if I learned one thing, we need numbers to make it valid. The more numbers they get, the more valid that survey becomes. East Central Solid Waste. We're still trying to figure out the deer carcass thing because of CWD, and so we've got a ways to go yet. We're stymied because Kanabec County Commissioner does not want any deer carcasses in the landfill. The question now has become, so if we follow that advice, what are you going to not allow next week or next month or next year? And so, it's a good, valid question. So anyway, stay tuned. Regional Library.
We had talked before about the open access in Hinckley being a pilot program, and that was determined as a go at the last meeting. So they're going to be working on all the issues to make it so that you can go to the Hinckley Public Library a couple hours before it opens or a couple hours after they've closed. It's a perfect location. You've got the city administrator and the sheriff's department right there in the same area. So That's happening. And then the other big thing that they just did, if anybody who likes to play board games, you can check out board games now at the library. You get them for 3 weeks at a time. There's 70 different titles and 120 games that people can utilize. So good family time.
Thank you. Minnesota Rural Counties. It was at the same time as my, can't remember. I think I had a transportation meeting at the same time. I didn't go. Did anybody get there?
Oh, we had personnel at the same time, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So I have
Chemical-
a
Yep, go ahead.
question. Is that something that we should all be attending whenever we can, or is it just if you can't attend, you'll let us know, or how does that go?
We're all, I think we need to, yes, we all can attend because we're all alternates.
Okay,
I think we need to determine between now and next year if it's something we need to continue to pay dues to. And I'll let everybody decide on their own, but they seem to be more centered in western Minnesota than northeast Minnesota or east central Minnesota. So they're, you know, a lot of their topics have to do with drainage, ditches, and things like that that we don't have very many of.
okay.
So I don't know. They do have good speakers occasionally, so anyway. The next time they have a meeting, I'll make sure, if I can't go, I'll make sure I put that out to everybody so somebody can go, because we are paying dues and somebody should be there.
Okay.
So, the Northeast Transportation Partnership, I was there last Thursday, I believe it was. Very good meeting. They continue to tell the story, and I think we need to listen to that story. Is the cost of maintaining and roads is not going down, and the cost and the collection of money is not going up, because it's pretty much flatlined. And the only way the collection can go up is if people buy more gas or more cars. And so there's only a limited, I mean, the potential is not there. So they're trying to figure out how they can get some more needed revenue, because you know, we're one district. We're District 1 of the MnDOT districts. And when we look at rebuilding the Bolotnik Bridge, or that intertwinement of bridges and roads on 35 when you enter Duluth, I mean, that takes a few years of the entire allotment that they have to spend. Cost of bridges is astronomical. So I think if you have some good ideas, let us know, let them know, let legislators know. They can't just say, no, we don't want to add another tax. We got to figure out a way to, you know, if we don't want another tax, that's fine, but how are we going to pay for roads? And if we're not going to pay for roads, then how are we going to educate people that the roads you used to drive on aren't going to be the same? So that's kind of the dilemma. It's not a Debbie Downer thing. It's reality. So we gotta face that. Mille Lacs Band. Terry and I met with them. Terry, you want to take that one?
Sure. We met on the 13th and we worked, we talked a lot about the initiatives update, which was really nice because we had Becky and then I can't remember the young lady's name from the Mille Lacs Band who works with them in this area. They're working on their initiatives update and I didn't realize that they had to get 5 counties, that they had to work 5 counties out together on that. So they have to do the 5 counties, plus they have to do each individual county. But it's huge and the goal is hopefully for it to be set by 2023. And they want, they're working really hard to get everything in place so it's a smooth transaction and not something that has to keep going back to the table. They are in dire need of social workers. They need 15 of them. So if you know anybody who's looking for a job, they're on their website. But for them to get this initiative program going, they're going to need at least 15 extra social workers to be able to do the job. So let's see. And then after that meeting, we talked a little bit about, Steve, I guess I kind of walked in the middle of that and I didn't understand it. So it's a community project where they're looking at doing a different freeway exchange on Highway 48, but then we were talking about 23 instead.
Well, I mean, they have asked for another freeway exchange, and the reason they asked for the location they asked for it in is because the land, they own all the land there. I think I mean, we'll support with a letter anything we can do to alleviate some traffic there. But I think from a county standpoint, if we're going to take a step back and take a look, there's some probably good reasons why they should really look at the Highway 23 interchange. If they, if MnDOT's going to spend money on a bridge because they are so expensive. So I think it's one of those things, Terry, that, we all ask for because there seems to be a whole big pot of money, lots of different pots, and everybody's trying to figure out who's really going to be able to deliver on from those pots of money. And so
okay.
I don't know. They're asking, we're asking for money. So, we'll see.
So I think I misunderstood them when we were in the meeting. I was thinking that they wanted to add another lane on Highway 48, but what they really want to do is create a whole new freeway exchange.
Yeah,
But down there where Mission Creek Theme Park was, I take it?
Yep.
Yep. Mr. Chair, if I could maybe close that gap. So their proposal is to add a northbound off-ramp between the 2 existing interchanges in Hinckley and to be able to access the band land in that area. So it would just be a northbound off. And then I think what Commissioner Holland is talking about is if we're going to invest money in that area, there's 2 interchanges and we know we have Highway 48, which has issues.
Right. And
we have where the junction on 23, that is a bad interchange where 61 comes up from the south. And so if we're going to, rather than add a northbound off, maybe there could be money invested in that Highway 23, 61 interchange to upgrade that and then create a back entrance to that, whether it's the casino or the land that the band owns on the east side of the interstate.
Okay. Thank you for that. It just put it more in perspective because I kept thinking, how are they going to get another one on Highway 48? So thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I said on the band initiative and the Health and Human Services. So they plan, I know I was in some of those meetings before and I was fascinated by that. So how is that going to work with Pine County Health and Human Services and the band? Are we still going to interact? And then are they going to use the same pot? Are we going to be in the same programs? How are we going to work that out?
Here, I'm not sure. Becky is going to figure that out for us. But to me, what they're really they would almost create like another county because they would become their own recognized health and human services for state purposes. So they would enter the state computer system just like our county workers do.
Okay, I got it.
I don't know, that's an oversimplified version, but that's one thing being there's a lot of reasons to be an initiative tribe, but what I think the advantage to Pine County is they would, you know, we get the bill for a lot of things that we have nothing to say about.
Right.
And we're all aware of that.
Right.
And so if they're an initiative tribe, then they deal with the state directly, and we are not the people that get the bills. They send those bills directly to the state, and the state decides whether or not they got the right documentation to pay for it.
Thank you. I just want to refresh myself there.
Yeah, I think they still hope to be done by 2023. I think that's very ambitious of them. I don't know, maybe they can really get going on it, but it doesn't seem like they have moved the needle a long ways from last year when we talked to them. And maybe they have, and we don't know all the story, but they're working on it. They're very focused on it right now, so maybe they'll get that needle moved.
Mr. Chair, if I can add too, they really want to get it going. So they're going to be meeting with us again, that portion over the initiative in 2 months. So it's not something that, you know, we just met and it's over with. Now we're going to keep working with them on that. So yeah. I'm looking.
Thank you.
Extension committee, anybody get there?
That would be me. So we met on the 15th. We talked a lot with Rod. There's some new things that they're doing because there's been so many questions as to how people get egg tools. And so Pine County is one of the first ones that have started a new egg tool checkout. So you can get check out a soil tester or a hay tester to see where your dampness is. There's other things that go with that. Farm Family of the Year, they've got some really great candidates, and it's a good committee working on that. And so they'll be coming up with that. If anybody knows any farm women that they would like to have considered for the Farm Women of the Year for 2021, we have until May 21st to get names submitted. The big topic, which will be coming to the board, is that right now Rod works for the county 50% of the time. Yeah, 50%. And we have so many things going on with our egg program, and they actually dropped what it's going to cost us to have him or to have an egg coordinator through the extension office or through the state of Minnesota, because a lot of the old timers have retired. So we have newer employees now. So with the drop in what it's going to cost to have somebody work for us, we're requesting that he does, I want to say 75% is what's going to be requested. So we've got numbers for 60% and numbers for 75%, where we would be able to have more services for Pine County. Right now, we share him with Isani County. So that's the big one. And that's pretty exciting. I understand that the board have been asking for an egg coordinator for a long time, and we finally got one. And now we have, because of the budget cuts, I want to say it was $8,500 is what it cuts that it's going to cost us, that we can put towards having him for more time. So that will be coming soon.
Our budget would stay the same. He would just put more time in.
No, it will cost us more money,
Well,
but we will get more time. But it's not going to cost us as much because there's been a cutback in what he actually gets paid. So.
Well,
we pay the university.
Right.
So Rod's his pay hasn't been cut.
But
yeah.
the formula has changed. Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe to sum up, so I think the to move from 0.5 to 0.75 is a very modest cost increase because there's a decrease on the hourly rate. So,
Right.
and Suzanne will put that all together for the budget request from Extension.
Lakes and Pines did not meet this week. I got a new calendar, Debbie, I'll send it to you.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep. The other thing that I had is I sat in on the alternate from District 1 for the AMC board meeting. So I sat in for Annie Marquardt from Aiken County, which is our elected rep from our county, or from our area. So anyway, it was a very AMC is as you know, anything they do well, including their board meetings. So I think we always have to remember when we need some help on things, to don't be afraid to reach out to AMC. That's my story. So anyway, it was a very fun meeting to be part of. Any other meetings people went to they want to report on?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I'd like to go back to the Chemical Coalition meeting, just because there's some other things that went with that were not in the minutes that I think are pretty valuable. Number one is we have a new resource in Pine County, which is which is located at the old Ben Franklin store here in Sandstone. And they're going to be doing all kinds of, my brain just died. It really died.
Chemical intervention, right?
Yep, chemical intervention. And so they'll be doing a lot of different therapy sessions. They've got, I went to their open house and they've got, it's just going to be really set up really nice. And so if you know people that have chemical issues, or I believe they're going to be working with mental health issues that need to have some therapy or just some treatment or some group counseling type of thing, it's a good source that we're going to be having here in our county. One of the things that they talked about that really hit me was substance abuse is up 60% in the state of Minnesota. That's huge. That's a big number. We had 19 calls for overdoses here in Pine County with our sheriff's department. So that isn't even necessarily all of it. That's just Pine County Sheriff's Department. 19 overdoses.
Is that in the last year, Terry, or?
Yeah.
I have from January.
Yeah, they were planning it and then I don't know when they moved in, but yeah, they're the old Ben Franklin part of it.
Oh, no, for the substance, for the overdose calls.
Overdose
Yeah.
calls.
So I have from January is what I have in my notes. So not that long. That's, we have a problem. So with that problem that we have, we know that we're running out of our grant money for the program that we have right now. And so we do have some other monies available. And the things that we've been talking about is that we need to start dealing more with mental health and with drug abuse again. So mental health, we know that that's a key to everybody that starts using or abusing other powers. So those are the things that the coalition is going to start looking at. And so we need to come up with our program and what we're going to be doing. We're going to focus on focus on meth and opioids, as it's a big issue in our county. So that's kind of where that's going right now, is just trying to figure out where we are and what we need to do to keep this going and to make Pine County a better, safer place to live.
Thank you. Anything else? Look at your upcoming meetings. Appreciate all the work you guys do in between the meetings at all these committee meetings. It's some weeks, you don't get much of a break, but we appreciate everything you're doing. So thank you. If I hear nothing else to come before the board, I'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Have a good day.
Another day.
Steve,
Yeah.
will I see you this afternoon?
What time is it?
It's noon.
I could probably run up there right now.
Okay, everything's
Is
ready
that
for you.
okay?
Yeah,
I gotta be back home at 1 for a meeting, but we'll take that.
okay.
All right. See you in a
Thank
bit.
you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.